G'day and welcome back to part 2 of my Kriesler 11-104 stereo radiogram. In part 1 I serviced the radio, it's working very well. I also serviced the record player and that's working very well also. Today I'm going to repair the cabinet and we should be able to refit the record player and the radio and see how well it works. Here's the cabinet. It seems to be finished in Danish oil or Scandinavian oil, so it should be pretty easy to get this looking good again. As I pointed out in part 1, this door doesn't open fully. There's something behind here that's stopping it from opening. So I need to get this front panel off, and I've got an idea it's just screwed on. There were 3 screws along the top. I've taken 2 out, but I've left this one in to hold it. Now I need to stand it up, and I think there's screws on the bottom. Yeah, there they are there. So there's 1, 2, there's 4 screws up there. I'll remove those, then set it back on the floor again. It's back on the floor. I'll just remove that last screw and this should just come away. There it is, there it is. Oh look, it's got cardboard in there. These must have been glued in there to act as an anti-vibration for the doors, so the doors don't vibrate when they're open. Not sure. Alright, I'll have to work that out later. Now, I'm hoping that frees up this decorative strip here with Kriesler written on it. Yeah, won't grip. I'll try down the other end. There it goes, there it goes. Oh. It's just a strip of metal with Kriesler Multisonic written on it. I'm not sure how I'm going to brighten that up. I've got the 2 tops from the radiogram outside of my workshop and I'm going to have a go at repairing the damage on the back. So to repair this, I've got a piece of Tasmanian oak here. It's about 3mm thick. If I cut a notch out the back here about 3mm deep, and I'll rip this bit of Tasmanian oak down the middle, maybe about 10mm wide, and then I can fit it in there. I can then smooth it in and colour match it to a certain extent, and maybe you won't see it that much. I have my router set up. I used it on a bit of scrap wood to set the depth and everything, so it's all set up. So let's see how we go with it. Looks a nice straight line. I'll see how the bit of wood goes in there. It's just higher than the original surface there, so I wouldn't want to go any deeper. I'll rip this bit of Tassie oak down the centre. I'll see if it's going to look alright there. No, that looks good. I'll have to glue it and clamp it and let it dry overnight, and then I can stain it up and hopefully match it in a little bit better. I'll put a bit of adhesive along here. Now I can glue it on. I'll just smoosh it around a bit to fill up all the gaps. I was going to clamp this, but I think I can just use some masking tape to hold it. I'm pretty happy with that. I'll let it set up overnight and we'll have a look at it in the morning. Now, of course, I've got to do the other smaller one as well. I'll do that off camera. We'll come back in the morning. I have the smaller of the 2 tops here. The other one was too big. I can fit this whole top in the camera, so I'll use this one. I'll take off the tape. This has been drying for maybe 18 hours, I guess. It's come up really well. It's just proud of the old surface there, so a little bit of sanding should bring it back to level or flush. Alright, I've been sanding this for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, and it's absolutely flush with the existing veneer. So it's coming off, the old finish is coming off. I've sanded that off, it's come up pretty good. There are watermarks here that I was worried about and they won't sand out. I'd have to treat them to get rid of them. Last night after dinner I came out and applied a bit of Danish oil to this repair area, and I wanted to just have a layer of oil there before I stain this so that it doesn't highlight the gap there. So I've effectively tried to seal the gap. I had to pop down to the hardware and buy some teak stain. I think that'll match. So I can stain this up to try and match the original finish. And that looks pretty good already. That looks alright. This seems a little bit redder than what that is. Maybe I'll add a bit of some cedar or something to it. I've added a little bit of cedar to just to the cloth actually. See if that makes it look a bit closer. That actually looks pretty good. I'll let that dry off. We'll see what it looks like. I'll put a bit of Danish oil over it. This one's marketed as Scandinavian oil, but it's actually Danish oil. The Danish oil is made of tung oil, that's T-U-N-G, or linseed oil, a bit of both, some solvents, might even have some varnish in it. So you just wipe it on like that, and you have to let it dry for about 8 hours or so, and you can keep recoating it. The more coats you put on it, the brighter it'll come out. It looks okay. I'm not over the moon with the whole thing. This Tasmanian oak that I've used here has picked out the dark bits and left some very light bits as well. It looks pretty good in the flesh. It's a bit dark there, but it would work all right, I think. I'm really not totally happy with it. I think I'll wipe that off, get some terps, wipe it all off, I'll start again. I'm going back to square one. I wasn't happy with the way this was turning out. I didn't like the contrast between the two timbers there, and I wasn't liking the way the Danish oil was coming up. It was too glossy. I didn't want it that glossy. So I've taken the small one right back to bare timber. There was a black stain around there. I got some hydrogen peroxide and stained that out, or bleached that out, I mean. And there was also a mark there. Well, I've sanded that as far as I've gamed to. It's almost gone. There's no mark there, but it's sort of discoloured it slightly. I'll leave that. I can't really go any deeper than that. And this one I've got to take the finish off as well. So I'm just using the scraper to try and get the finish off and level this little repair. I don't think it was 100% level using the sandpaper, but the scraper will absolutely make it flat and level. Last time I used teak brown. This is teak golden or golden teak, and I'll put this on. This may not make it quite as black as it was, and I'm not using the masking tape. I'll let that dry off, and I might go over it with the brown once that's dried, and it may stop all those dark areas coming up. That's dried. I'll put a little bit of the brown on. That's dried off again. It kind of dulls off as it dries. So I will just keep doing this until I'm happy with it. That's looking pretty good. It will dry lighter than that, but it may still be too dark. I can use some very fine steel wool to just lighten it off a bit and blend it into the existing bit of wood there. It's the next day. I've put 2 coats of Danish oil on the tops here. I'm happy with them. I'm not going to do any more to them. Your view in the camera is making them look a bit glossier than they really are. They're quite a flat finish. The repair looks pretty good once it's on the radiogram, and you would look at it from this direction. It pretty much blends in. It's not that bad. It doesn't really matter. It's a repair, so it is what it is. I've got the front here with the 2 doors on the bench. I don't need to do a whole lot to these. I will sand them back, maybe even just use a Scotch-Brite or something like that. Get it back to a nice surface, and then I'll recoat them with the Danish oil. And I think that's probably all they're going to need. I do need to get the doors out though, and this type of fitting was simply a plastic strip in there and you pulled it out. Back in the day, I assume I can do it, maybe not. That side's not moving. I'll try this side. There we go. With that strip out, that should just lift up. There we go. Do the same on this end. I'll just do this one door. We'll see what it looks like, and then I'll do the rest of the front. I don't need to show the whole procedure. This is what do you call it? Steel wool. It's a fairly coarse one actually. So I'll just take the old stuff off the top here, the old finish. I'll rub a bit of scour across the top. What I took off with the steel wool was very dried out, so I think it's quite solid now. It feels good. I'll apply some Danish oil to it. I'll sort of use this as a test, I guess. If this comes up all right, this is all I'll need to do to the rest of the woodwork on the radiogram. Alright, I'll let that dry off and see what it's really going to look like, but I don't think it's going to look much different to that. Perhaps a little bit flatter, but I reckon it looks pretty good. That's the other door compared to the one I've just done there, so I'm pretty happy with that. And I think that's all that's going to need, and I think that's all that's going to need to be done to the rest of the radiogram. I've done the front panel, I've done the two doors, they're out in the other room, but this has come up pretty good. This is one coat. I don't think I need to do any more. I don't want to colour it, I don't want to make it deeper, I don't want to make it shinier. I think that's perfect the way it is. This is the back side of the front panel there. I was going to put the doors back in, they've dried. So I've got one of the rails there, or the guides. Here's a door here, so that should fit in there. And here's the other door. So if I open both doors up, and I'll get this and I'll feed it in. I should be able to just put that in. Yeah, look at that. Huh. Oh, there it goes. So that should slide all the way along and just pop in the end there. Oh, easy. That's responded really well. Sanded it back, one coat of Danish oil, and it's back to like new. Very nice. All right, I'll have to do the rest of the cabinet now. I've managed to get the cabinet up on the bench. I didn't think I was going to be able to lift it, but I got it up there. I'm not going to show me doing all this. We've done enough of the woodworking already. I've got a scourer and the jacks down there, the steel wool, and I'll just go and steel wool it all and use the scourer to smooth it off and some Danish oil on top. The grill cloths are good because they had the doors covering them, but I thought I'd give it a shot with this K2R stain remover. I honestly don't think it does all that much, but you just spray it on, it turns into a powder, and you dust it off. I spent the afternoon yesterday just refinishing the cabinet. It looks good, but it needs to harden for another day or so, and then I can take it inside and start reassembling it. Another thing I can do while I wait for the finish to harden is to refit this decorative strip. I've redone this Kriesler multi-sonic stereo text, and I used my vinyl cutter and cut out a new one in gold. I used a very light looking gold, I didn't want it too bright. Just looking at it now, it looks quite natural, except now you can read it. I've got some contact adhesive here, I'll use that. I think that's what they used in the factory. And a bit on the back of the metal strip, of course. Alright, that's been drying for about 10 minutes, so I should be able to push that back on there. That looks good. That little bit of glue will rub off once it starts to dry. I'm very happy with the way the text has come out. It looks good. When you bought one of these radiograms, they gave you a microphone with it. You could plug it in and karaoke, I suppose, or not really karaoke, I guess, because they wouldn't have the music without the words, but you could sing along at least. I'll take it apart, I'll just see what's going on inside. It does work, I did try it. The little rubber grommet on the end's melted. I'll just see what's inside this thing. I say it works, it worked to a fashion, not very well. It's glued itself together there. That's foam, is it? Yeah, it's an old foam. Alright, so there's a capacitor there, a pickup, and something else, not sure what that is. Oh, it's a little transformer, audio transformer. Clean out the bits of foam that are there. And this, where the foam's been sitting on here, it's corroded the plating, or it's plastic, it's got a chrome plating on it. So really, just a matter of cleaning it all up. I'll put a new rubber, I don't know, grommet on there, I suppose, and that'll have to do it. I'll measure the capacitor if I can. Not sure if I can while it's connected to everything else. So that's the red wire, so that's the center of the plug. So it's open at that end. So this should be 4.7 nanofarad or 0.4. It's nothing. It did come up, there it is. 6.6, so you'd have to think that capacitor might be a bit high. A bit unusual for it to go off spec, one of those. I've got another capacitor here to try, so I'll just cut this one out. I'll try this one. Let's see what this one says. Yeah, it's 4.8, so there was something else upsetting the reading there. I'll fit a new one anyway. I've soldered one end of the new capacitor on, and this had a little strain relief grommet type thing that went down here somewhere. It's melted away, it was rubber. But I have a grommet here out of an oscilloscope probe that failed, and it's the right colour and everything, so if I can get that on there, that'd be good. And I think if I cut it off here somewhere, it'll sit in that little groove there. Might have to add some adhesive or something, but it should work. I'll cut this off here. That should fit in there like that. It's not bad. I removed the mono plug from the end of the wire here, and I'm going to attempt to pass this all the way down, which might be interesting. I could come in from this end, but it's got a little swaged on sleeve there, so I'll try and avoid that. So if I can get that in, there it goes. Now fortunately this lead's only about 2 meters long, so it's going to take me a while to do this. I'll just keep spraying it with isopropyl alcohol, and I think it'll slide on pretty easily. Yeah, easy. I've finally got there, so that should push up on that, and that should fit in there. I've put everything back in, soldered that capacitor in. I've got some packing foam in here, that thin stuff they use for you know, sending packages around, or stuff in packages. So if I hold that there, have I got too much in there? I don't think so. No, that looks good. That's pretty much perfect. Probably a little bit longer than the original, but it'll do. I need to refit the mono plug on the other end there, so I'll do that. I'll come back and we'll give it a test. I have the radio at the end of the bench here, and it's turned on. That one there's microphone. I'll plug our mic in there. Let's give it a test. There it is. It's coming out the left speaker only, which I think is the way it's wired into the set. It's only mono. Okay, that's working. I'm not going to sing into it. I'll finish cleaning all the cord, and then I can put it with the radiogram. The cabinet's finished. I'm absolutely delighted with it. The finish is really nice. That Danish oil feels great. It's come out nice and smooth and flat. It looks really good. The Kriesler multi-sonic stereo looks good. It's understated as it's intended, but it's much easier to read, and you can actually read it. The lids are very smooth to open. It feels and looks luxurious. The repair on the backs come up nicely. It's not noticeable, your eye's not drawn to it. The screw holes in the back of the lid for the hinges had become loose, so I filled them up with some wooden adhesive, and that's why I had to drill them out again. I put them back on with a couple of screws. I've got to take that off again, of course. I haven't finished inside yet. You may remember there were 2 pieces of cardboard stuck in behind the doors, and that prevented the doors opening fully. The only thing I can think of is that they were packaging and they were used to stop the doors moving around while it was transported when it was new. That's it for part 2. In part 3, I need to recone those 2 speakers. I also have a little project I'm going to try. That's why the radio's not back in the cabinet. These fit into the radio, and I'll tell you now, it's not Bluetooth. I hope you enjoyed following along on this episode, and I hope you can join me next time for my next radio adventure.